Hey, welcome to a new session of Academic Crisis Line. Today we're going to talk about how I upgraded my project planning. I thought it's a good idea to do this as my very first live session where I was talking about project planning and long-term co-planning of multiple projects and how to set them in timeline with each other. This was my most successful video blog so far, and since April I switched everything to project planning on Trello, which I find extremely useful, and I thought you find this useful too. So, as usual, if you have questions, tweet to @phdial. If you have questions after this live blog is over, you can also still tweet me at phdial. Alternatively, you can also just write me an email. So, I learned about Trello actually because I'm working as for a cat rescue organization as a volunteer side job, and there we're using Trello to organize all our cats and the people who are taking care of them, and we have one Trello board per project. And I was so convinced by the functionality of this app and how this all works and how great this also is for collaboration that I started slowly migrating to having the Trello board instead of my actual physical board where I move post-its around, in case you remember. So let me show you how this looks now on Trello. So here is my current Trello board with the project planning. Trello has a very, very easy layout if you don't have too many lists. So you have a board, which you can name however you want. You can have multiple boards here. I currently only have one, but you can have multiple boards and coordinate and organize them individually. I continue to organize my projects in the current project stages because for research projects they are also similar. So I have one list with studies in preparation, one with studies which are currently in the data acquisition phase, one list with projects which I'm currently analyzing, one list where I having all the studies which I'm currently writing up. Projects which you can check the preprint on my website, but are currently in the revise and resubmit state, are in this list, and here are my published projects. I also have a separate list with file thrower studies which are either paused for whatever reason, or where I might use this, like these are failed studies which I might use as a pilot or like as a learning experience for future planning. So if we go in one of these lists, so these lists have cards on them, and for each of my projects I have one card. So you can add card, you can copy the list, you can move it around. The nice thing is about Trello is that you can also drag and drop everything. So you can just drag and drop your lists in case you find this useful. I have each of the projects I'm working on has one card. And if one of these projects moves into the next phase, I can just drag the card to the other one. I label the projects I'm working on as primary and secondary. This is basically whether I'm the first author and the main responsible person for the study, or whether it's a collaboration where I'm not the main responsible author. This helps me prioritizing projects, and what I additionally do to prioritize project is I use this little rocket with which I mark the projects which are currently my most prioritized projects and which have to go relatively fast. So this helps me for planning, and if somebody asks me whether I can help with data acquisition next week, then I know, well, I have to really work on this one. So do I actually have the capacity, yes or no? And this also helps me with more long-term planning, depending on in which stage the project currently is. So when we now go in one of these cards, you can set due dates, which is extremely helpful. So here you can put deadlines for grants or you can put your estimated finalizing of the data acquisition, for example, or when is the latest point in time you want to start this project. Trello then tells you and counts how many weeks this is and how good your effort is, and ultimately at the end will also give you an overview of how productive you have been working. You can add a description to the project. This is not very useful for me right now because I still have an overseeable number of projects and I'm not collaborating on this board yet. So I'm the only person using this board. I can add attachments, like for example, your pre-registration PDF or your stimuli or whatever you find useful to add here. Another thing which I find extremely useful is the checklist and the progress. So you can add a checklist here, and then you have a title of the checklist, and then you can add, like I did here, the study preparation checklist. You can then basically mark, and it shows you the progress of the project, which is very helpful. So, and also very helpful, I find, is especially when you work with multiple people on the same board and you're coordinating with several people, you always have an activity log, who did what and who marked what. So you saw, oh, this part has been finished before, what happened, who did it? You can just go down on the activity of the card and you can see who's responsible, and then you can check in with this person whether this is correct. You can also have dependencies and other things here. I haven't fully explored the power up options yet, so I can't really tell you that much about it. But you can, if you want to collaborate on a project, you can add members here. These can either be internal members with a Trello account, or you can just add people on their email address and with their email address, and then they need to click the link every time they're working on this board, but they don't have this listed as their own board or as their own project dependency. Once a project is done, or for whatever reason you want to get rid of a card, you can just archive it. So, in the data analysis stage, I also find this very helpful with the progress with the checklist, because it also shows you how far you are. Here in my fMRI analysis for this project, I am basically almost through the whole pre-processing, and then the first level and the group level is a matter of just a few days after this has all been done nicely. So yeah, I'm actually pretty far with this project in analysis, and I have a relatively good estimate as to when the data analysis will be done and ready. And of course, I can also hide completed items, which is very helpful once you move a card from the analysis list, for example, to the writing up, and you have a new checklist. So, as I said, you can add members to your board. I imagine once I'm not a postdoc anymore, but I'm actually managing my own lab, this is going to be the way I am going to coordinate projects. And you can just add people to a board, and then you share the board with them, and you can give them different administrative rights. So some people have editing rights for some things, but not for others. So this is really nice to administer this. And I think especially for PIs in the beginning of the phase, where you're the main supervisor of a limited number of people, this is extremely helpful to keep control and to keep some kind of order through multiple projects at the same time, and also keep track of publications and whether you can fulfill all your tenure requirements with the publications and everything. And I find this much more helpful than spreadsheet. One thing I just started using last week, so I'm not super professional yet, is the Gantt calendar. And this is something like a Google Calendar implemented, where you can have, where you connect your board to a calendar, and then you have these, and you have one row per project, and then you have certain planning stages. And then once you move a project from one stage to the other, it will also move in this calendar. And this calendar allows you to have a good overview over the general time course, and it helps me planning. I'm not totally convinced about this yet, and I'm not sure whether I'm using this in a perfect way yet. But I'm trying to get used to it and do some more tutorials on this. And at least it helps me to keep track of my general project planning and how much I'm loaded in certain months and where I have gaps in the planning. Because I'm still not 100% sure about about what I think and how I feel about this implementation of the calendar. I still have my calendar here on the side, where I basically have a monthly overview over an entire year, and my post-its are basically highlighting what is my priority for a certain month and which project is my priority for a certain month, so that I don't start loading too much other things on this month because I really want to get something done. So how I organize Trello with the different project stages is just one way of organizing it, obviously. You can organize the lists in a very different way. And for example, for the organization I'm working for as a side job, we are using it by not by progressing stage, because we have too many projects for this, but we have it by project. So in this case, every project has a certain number of due dates and a progress where it should be, and then you add members who are responsible for this project and tag them, and then you can basically organize this per project. I think this is a matter of taste and how you like it best. I don't think there's a right and a wrong way to do this. But I think it's just really, really handy, and it's very helpful because it's so visual and it's just dragging and dropping. Trello can also be a bit weird. Let me show you a few things. So if you want to add a new list, you do this here at the very end. So this is very weird when you have a lot of projects. So I now only have 7 lists, but if you have 50 lists, like going all the way to the right, to add a new list is very cumbersome. But this is unfortunately the only way to do it. But here you can add a list. It's like test, or even better, students to supervise. And then you can move this around. So as you can see, it's very, very it's very visual and it's very easy. A student. It's very visual and it goes really, really fast. And it's nice. It's nice because you can basically share a whiteboard or a calendar with multiple people, and you can add a lot of things. Recently, Trello implemented a bunch of power-ups where you can add, where you can connect tools for analysis and reporting, or communication and collaboration, developer tools, which is probably great for labs which do method development. Of course, also file management tools, which can be extremely helpful if you work with multiple people and you don't want to have your files or your file management on just one hard drive. It also has a marketing and social media tools which are connected. I don't know. So, for example, MailChimp can be extremely popular if you have if you're working on public outreach efforts and you want to mail a certain group of interested people. SurveyMonkey is also helpful if you have a large lab and you need to decide on workflows or whatever. Of course, Twitter, again, for social outreach is extremely helpful. I don't know any of these. As I said, I'm mostly doing using the project management apps, like currently the calendar planning, and you can also connect this to your GitLab and GitHub. So I imagine that it would be extremely helpful for labs which are sharing code and work on coding on the same projects, and want to have a management tool here. So there are many things to discover. I can't tell you all of them. One other feature would be the stickers. So you have a bunch of stickers you can use to comment on certain projects if you want. You can give your colleagues a thumbs down or not. Oh damn, how do I remove it? Okay, I will figure out later. And you can also just watch a project. This is also helpful. So you can here watch a board, or you can look at a certain. So if you share this, you can also watch this card and activity. So every time somebody adds something or somebody edits it, you will get an email notification. And I think these are the most important things we talked about. These are the most important things I figured out so far. And yeah, I hope you also find this a helpful tool and would consider using this yourself. It just has the obvious benefits of everything which is digital or online based compared to having just a paper version of it. And this is simply because you can open it from everywhere, you can access it from everywhere. You can collaborate much easier than on a paper version. And it just helps sharing project planning with multiple people. But it also keeps you more on track because you do get these due emails if you're too late with a deadline. Or yeah, it just helps you connect multiple tools together. And I think this is extremely helpful. So I think this was everything I had to say about this for today. Give it a try. I really like it. And it's free if you have limited data use. But it's also very affordable if you have a larger lab and you need to add a lot of space and extra data. And this is also, I don't know exactly the business plans they have, but it's also not unbearably, like it's not crazy high. So give it a thought. I find it helpful. Also, for the future, I'm still looking for a co-host for this session, and it would be nice to share this with somebody. It's really not that much work, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of exposure, and I got a lot of positive feedback so far. So if you're interested, drop me an email. And see whether we can figure something out. See you next time. Bye.